Welcome back to Ruapuna Speedway's Methanol Madness. It's finally that time of year again as we gear up for another 6 months of racing action, and with that comes another season of Methanol Madness. As always, I'm joined by our Ruapuna Speedway commentator AJ Batt. AJ, we're up to season 4, can you believe it?
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It just started off as a bit of a silly idea and it's grown, and yeah, we've got a global audience too. How good is that?
Absolutely. So on tonight's episode, we're going to cover some of the exciting changes that happened over the winter break. We've got some tickets to give away to our opening night, and we're also going to be previewing what's to come at Ruapuna Speedway this season. To get the show started tonight, we're going to review some of what's been happening over the off-season, as well as obviously how we wrapped up the Ruapuna Speedway season last year. We wrapped up in April with the R&R Duff Gold Cups being won by Joel Myers Jr. in the sprint car and Alec Inslee picking up the Midget Gold Cup as well. Luke McClymont taking home yet another wingless sprint rumble, proving his domination once again in that class. AJ, several highlights of mine from that week included Alec winning the BT race for mates, Ben Matthews picking up the Eliminator race. What were some of your highlights from Speed Week?
Well, you stole 2 of them, because how good is it that we've got these young guys coming through? There were a few things, and one was the commitment of the competitors and the teams to the concept of it. And for example, Aussie Sockhole, all of a sudden, young Zachary comes down crook, and so they fly someone in from Australia, Mitchell Dumsney, to fill in the seat for the Gold Cup. That tells me that it means something to them. I thought the midget cars, the gap between the north and south isn't that big, is it? And some of our young guys really shone. Super impressed with young Ben Morgan. I thought Ben really stood up and showed the country what he's capable of. But I think the sense is that the changing the guard is coming through. You know, these young midget guys are so good.
Absolutely, and with $100,000 of prize money given away that week, it certainly was one to remember. Now, earlier this month, of course, we did also have a couple of practice days at Ruapuna Speedway, giving everybody the opportunity to shake their cars down after some off-season maintenance. Both remained relatively uneventful. We did see, unfortunately, rookie Lockie Brett in the TQ class have a bit of an engine expiration there at second practice and a bit of a fiery display there, AJ, which was a shame, but he's one of many rookies that we've welcomed to Ruapuna this year as well, and obviously not the start he wanted, but there was plenty of others there at practice as well.
Yeah, really good turnout. It surprised a lot of people. The turnout in the pits was significant, and the number of people walking in to watch the practice. Back in the good old days, or bad old days really, you might get half a dozen cars to the first practice, and there was more rabbits running around the car park than there were people actually watching the practice. This time there was several hundred people enjoying the sort of atmosphere and walking around and just getting back into the speedway groove. It tells me a lot where Ruapuna's actually at right now, because the competitors, there's a heap of desire and they really want to make it happen, and there's a fan base that's building.
100%. Now, some of those notable rookies that we have welcomed this year as well, we've got Olivia Stewart in the TQ and Connie McKay in the modified sprint. Both very well respected races in the grass kart division, which again, the grassroots racing really coming through. These girls now stepping up into some bigger classes. Will be very interesting to see them take the open wheel racing kind of by storm this year and get involved, which is really cool. We've also got several new rookies in the modified sprints. We've got Luke Cook, Rob Davey, Cooper Forbes, as well as a couple quarter midget drivers graduating up into the TQ grade, which is of course Brooke Clark, and Malachi Webb coming in on a youth dispensation as well. So plenty of young hotshots to get amongst it, AJ. I'm sure that many of them, will have some pretty strong performances this year.
What was really interesting is that the grass karts have become a bit of a speedway development deal, and for a long time Speedway kind of missed that. Everyone went their own separate way. The go-karts, for example, out Cars Road, they tended to migrate to the pavement racing, whereas the grass karts, they're very cool to watch. And now these kids that are racing them are seeing an opportunity in speedway racing, and it's a really good springboard for new competitors to come in and I say lap it up. And those girls showed some real wick at the practices, and it's a lot of talent that's coming into the sport from other spheres of motor racing. It's very good.
A very popular competition that we ran last year was, of course, our Share and Win, which we brought back this week on our social media, which you may have seen. We thought that this was the best place to announce the winners. So the way that you enter into this draw was, of course, just to tag a friend in the comments of the Facebook post over on the Ruapuna Speedway page. That was all you had to do to be in to win, and we've selected 10 people that have picked up 10 single adult passes to opening night, Saturday, November 2nd. The winners this week are Serena Terrace, Jem Baldock, Stuart Rickman, Emma Tweed, Patricia Sinclair, Wayne Hawker, Julie King, Alana Fox, Jason Wright, and Martin Holland. So if those 10 people, you just need to collect your adult pass from the main gate on Saturday and just bring along some valid ID. Congratulations, and we look forward to seeing you there. To move on to the rest of the episode, we now bring you the Ranch Bar and Grill preview of the week, where we're going to take a look at what's to come this season, as well as our entry lists for opening night. There's plenty on the calendar this year that you aren't going to want to miss. So AJ, let's take a look at the race calendar for 2024-25. Starting, of course, with this Saturday, we have the Avon City Ford King of the Clay and the Dalton Sprint Car Summer Slam. And then we've got plenty more coming up with 3 meetings in November.
Yeah, it does start cranking up fairly quickly, doesn't it? You get opening night and there's always a lot of anticipation, both from the race fans and the teams, just where are we at sort of thing. The Canterbury Championships, it's that bragging rights, and then good old carnival night, it's very popular, and it brings the circus to the Speedway in a lot of ways, the carnival rides, and it's, was a New Zealand Speedway Awards Best Promotion a number of years ago, and we're really lucky that we're just able to replicate it year after year, and each time we just throw in a couple of little fresh elements, nothing too drastic, but it's a hell of a good night out, the carnival night, and then we really start getting down and dirty with the race calendar. The War of the Wings, Hydrolink War of the Wings, they rock on into town on the 14th of December, and by then Joel Myers will be back as well, and how good is that going to be? And into the new year, War of the Wings cranks up the new year. Melrose Motorsport New Zealand TQ Championship, I'm picking is going to be one of the absolute shows of the season. So competitive, the TQs, and King Jeremy Webb, he will so be keen on getting that 6th title at his home track. And then, boy, we really go flat stick, don't we, cranking up the season right up to the end with that Speed Week again.
Absolutely. So we do, of course, have 3 rounds of the War of the Wings this year, and that TQ Championship AJ speaks of there, January 24th and 25th. So a little bit bringing our New Zealand titles a week earlier this year than we've held them in previous years, but it's certainly going to be one with plenty of competitors travelling from all over. We've obviously, of course, got Speed Week as well, which is 4 nights over that week. Once again, proved very popular last year, AJ. And again, the events that we're putting on those nights are certainly going to be crowd favourites, as well as those of the drivers as well, with some big prize money rumoured to be coming out again.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's a lot of northern teams that are already talking about it. I wouldn't rule out some other overseas interests driving for Kiwi cars. But I think what really made the Speed Week so good last year was the fact the new elements that went in there, that Eliminator. It was just such a good race. And then to see like Ben Matthews and the Matthews team celebrating, it was their first real win on Speedway, and what a stage to do it on. And the Eliminator, that's the sort of format that creates a race like that, something really memorable, and no doubt everyone's just thinking for something a little bit spicy to put in there as well, just to keep cranking things up.
Absolutely. Some other championships that drivers will be looking forward to are both happening in the North Island this season, with the New Zealand Midget Championship being held at Western Springs in early January. AJ, news coming in this week that will be the final Midget Championship that we see at Western Springs, with the closure of the Speedway at the end of the season.
Yeah, it's particularly sad. There are a lot of people that talk about the Springs, not being suitable for this and not being suitable for that. But, a lot of them have only been to about 3 Speedway tracks in the world. It's an iconic venue, and you would notice that when you're up in the US, everyone has heard of Western Springs.
Yes.
And, it's very sad for the sport, and it actually will ripple down through open wheel Speedway racing in New Zealand. in saying that, it'll be well worth booking your plane tickets right now to get up there. What is it, January the 4th? It's going to be very, very cool getting up there to the Springs for that one. Then the sprint cars at Kiki. New territory for the sprint car nationals.
I definitely think that will be interesting, and of course I'm sure there will be plenty of South Island competitors putting those two events and potentially many more on their calendars for this coming season. You will have noticed in there, of course, with what we spoke about, the Hydrolink War of the Wings hosting 3 rounds at Ruapuna this season, amongst many other rounds that are happening across the South Island. AJ, this is a very popular series. We've seen Joel Myers Jr. pick up the win there the last couple of years, so very interesting to see what will happen with him and Max Guilford teaming up with Daniel Anderson Racing, coming back to take the War of the Wings again. What
a super team. You know, Dan Anderson has done so much for speedway racing in the South Island, you know, with his import drivers, and when he was racing, you know, his unconditional support. You know, if there was 5 sprint cars racing around a couple of dead sheep, Dan Anderson would have been one of the guys that pulls into the pits. December the 7th at Ellesmere, that cranks the whole series up, and we're rapt to have Hydrolink back on board with that one. And then it's Ruapuna on the 14th of December, 30th down at Cromwell for the sort of Christmas New Year carnival. Back to Ruapuna on the 11th, the following weekend over to Greymouth for the Wild West shootout, and that's always a very cool weekend for people. And then we're back to Ruapuna 8th of February, then up to Blenheim and Nelson on the 14th and 15th of February. So yeah, it's a fairly condensed calendar, but also the drivers are starting to put their hand up, and there's a number of new boys that are saying we just want a slice of the action, so you know, bring it on.
Absolutely, and definitely a jam-packed schedule there over a very short couple of months, but nonetheless plenty to look forward to coming up for the 2024-25 season. So with all of that to look forward to, of course, we're going to kickstart it tomorrow night with the Avon City Ford King of the Clay and the first round of the Dalton Sprint Car Summer Slam. We've got the entry lists in, of course, of those that we're expecting to see tomorrow. AJ, plenty of standouts throughout all of the classes. Starting with the quarter midgets, we've got 18 entries.
Yeah, quite incredible, isn't it? And a big opportunity for one of the youngsters to sort of step up to the plate. And yeah, big opportunities there because you know there's a few names that have gone, and I'm picking someone like Jack Reed. You know, he's the sort of kid that showed a lot of promise, but this is the sort of season where he's going to be very hard to beat on picking.
And once again, welcoming quite a handful of rookies to the grade as well. But of course, people like Brodie Morris, Miller Johnson, Jackson Kedsley, all really stepping up the game in the last season or so. So it'll be very interesting to see them go head to head with some of the front runners as well. Another one of our largest classes, also welcoming quite a few rookies, is of course the TQ grade. This is a big season for the TQs with the Melrose Motorsport New Zealand TQ Championship in January. Plenty of people with their eye on that, and of course Jeremy Webb will be the one to beat, I believe, AJ, but plenty of other names up there that have been very competitive.
Jeremy, he's very driven about it, you know, a whole new package for the car and so on, and it's his home track, so he will be so keen to do something. Interesting that Caden Barker, North Island TQ champion, the luxury of having 2 cars. I've sent one down here and he'll be running the 44 car out of Christchurch pretty much the whole season right up to that New Zealand TQ Championship. If that's not intent, then there's no intent, is it? You know, they are right into this, and that's going to spice things up a bit. There's also a good chance for some of the rookies, and I'm very much looking forward to Lockie Brett. The few laps he got in at the practice, and he had his foot right up it, and you know, a good chance for him. But it's also a real opportunity for some of the more seasoned drivers to sort of show where they're at as well. And you know, the likes of Marty Knight, you know, sort of built his season up as things went by, and they're the sorts of drivers that'll be looking to improve week in and week out, and they will be setting their goals. You know, the goals will be the likes of the South Island title, and then for a lot of them, they will have their peg in the sand. We want to qualify for the New Zealand TQ Championship final. So what a way to spice things up.
Absolutely. Of course, some notable names that we have missing this season: Tyler Warnock, Ricky Brett taking a sabbatical due to a bit of an injury, ongoing injury, I should say. But of course, putting Lockie out on the field will also be very interesting. Some of our local favourites: Scott Bailey, Ethan Smith, everybody out there. I mean, the TQ class has been one of our most competitive for a number of seasons, and this year with the New Zealand title, I don't think will be any different, AJ. Of course, we've got all of our grades racing tomorrow night, so we've also got the modified sprints, which we spoke earlier have seen quite an influx of entries this year, AJ. I don't think I personally have ever seen the modified sprint have so many cars.
Yeah, I was a little surprised because like half a dozen years ago, the modified class was just about dead and buried. But look at it now, and it is so competitive. And you know, the likes of Brett Booth and that, you know, they're going to have to sort of up their game now that Liam Astle, you know, goes out and he knocks the record for 6. He slaughtered that 1 lap record. So with Craig Cox gone from the modified sprint class, Astle could well be the pace setter, but the action behind him is going to be very, very frenetic.
Absolutely, couldn't agree. And some of those rookies that we spoke about, as well as you know, Liam Astle, Brett Booth, Harry McIntyre, we can't forget, also a very, very strong force in that grade as well. The Wingless sprints have a pretty solid entry, just of 10 this coming season, or this coming meeting, I should say, sorry. But of course, we saw how popular the Wingless Rumble was towards the end of last season. That class is thriving well and alive as well. So we've got Shooter Hawkins making a return as well. Obviously, we saw him take a pretty nasty tumble there towards the end of last season, but good to see him back, AJ.
Yeah, it's a class with a real mix, isn't it? It's sort of half the old boys, half the young guys. And Kane Jemmett, you know, here's his big chance now. Bailey Clive, he's graduated up into the sprint car class, and it's a class now that's looking for a hero. And Simon Moore last year, he showed enough that, you know, he could be a real surprise package and a pace setter. But then, you know, we have the likes of Andrew Gregg, who pulls a really good performance out of the hat from time to time, and super competitive, that class. And yeah, it's looking for a hero.
Absolutely. Midgets also on the rise in numbers as well. As you just mentioned there, Craig Cox making the move from modified sprints to midgets. I think he's a great addition to the class.
He will put his foot hard into it, and he's a real sort of a real firebrand sort of driver. He gets in there, gives it everything. The conversion from the winged modified sprint down to the non-winged midget car, he will notice the difference. Even though the wing on the modified sprints is small, it still has a significant role to play in how the cars handle. Jay Chadwick, you know, they've gone all out this year, a lot of new equipment, and they've got a very interesting sign up as a crew chief in Kaz Townsend. And Kaz Townsend is world reputed. He's not just a local guy or a Kiwi. He is very, very good and a lot of experience with some of the biggest teams that there are. So Jay Chadwick, yeah, what a way to start the season with Kaz Townsend turning the wrenches.
And engine problems plagued the end of Liam's season last year, but I'm sure that Liam McCoubry will be one to watch as well. And of course, Nathan Wilkie, once again making the trek up to Christchurch to compete in our opening night, will be one to watch also. Now, our sprint car class also filled with rookies this time. We've got a couple of young guns travelling from Nelson, and Gus Dawson and Jack Burson. Gus, of course, driving the car previously piloted by Stephen Taylor in recent years. He's been known to not be shy of the gas pedal there, AJ, so it'd be very interesting to see how those guys stack up against the likes of Connor Rangi and Caleb Bourne this weekend.
The footage I saw from the Nelson practice with Gus and Jack tearing around there, yeah, they're going to be really good. And I think Kevin Freeman has done a bit of a smart thing. You know, they're still sort of trying to iron out a deal with Brenham Crouch. Brenham is likely to come out here for a small part of the Hydrolink, more of the wings. But what he's done is he's looked and found this Jack Burson who has impressed him. And the footage that you saw from Nelson, these two young fellas are getting right into it. And of course, we've got Bailey Clive, who was so dominant at parts of last year's Wingless sprint season. He's moved into sprint cars. How good is that? Job Quantock, he's going to surface at some point of the year, and he's got a very solid sort of rallying career behind him. Kyle Glover, his season last year was about 1.5 race meetings, if that. and they bought up large. They basically bought an existing team to double their spares package and pick the eyes out of that. And we've still got some big names still to come. How good was it, Matt Honeywell, at the practice? Matt is traditionally a late comer to the season because the farming stuff gets in the way, but he said, I'm ready to go. And there's still plenty of bark in that old dog because he's going to be a pace setter. Also going to be interesting to watch the progression of Caleb Bourne. And he will be very, very keen to make things happen. Of course, then you got Connor Rangi, Steve Duff Jr., the list goes on. And those guys have all got opportunities. We've lost a few, we've gained a few. So I think the sprint car class will just continue to grow.
And a name that is missing off that list, a crowd favourite, Jamie Duff. He will be there at some point in the season, not quite for opening night just yet, but news breaking over the off-season there at our CSA prize giving actually that he's going to be piloting the 71A that is previously obviously driven by Jamie McDonald as well over this coming season in the North Island. So I think seeing Jamie running for Jamie will be quite interesting as well, and obviously getting that experience racing in the North Island, something he's done before many a times, but will be interesting to see what he brings back as well.
Yeah, it will be, and Jamie has already intimated that he's going to miss the first couple of 3 shows here maybe. He's a possible for the early War of the Wings stuff, but as soon as he gets an opportunity to run that 19 car, they'll be there with bells on, and it'll be really interesting to see that additional pace that he's going to pick up from the running up at the Springs and around the North Island. So, the Duff man, I think he's still going to be the guy to chase.
Another one that'll be very interesting to watch his progression this year will of course be Dylan Forsey. We saw him be a pretty strong force last year in just his rookie season, graduating out of TQs, moving into sprint cars. He's got a lot on his plate this year and he's probably putting a little bit of pressure on to improve on how well his rookie year went last year.
That does tend to happen. You have a strong rookie year and the next season, you're going with great expectations and they just don't measure up. But I think we've seen enough of Dylan Forsey and his team to know that they're going to be there or thereabouts, and he spent a good amount of time up in the USA crewing for Joel Myers up there, and the experience and so on that he would have got up there is going to be absolutely invaluable. And again, his granddad Miles has sort of put together a pretty solid team, and he's going to be a very interesting proposition this season is Dylan Forsey.
Absolutely. Strong drivers in all of our classes this year, and of course with opening night coming just tomorrow night, make sure to buy your tickets online at ruapunaspeedway.co.nz, or gate sales will be available. If you can't make it trackside, live stream is available via RJPTV. But until next time, keep your foot up it.